Hi folks, and welcome to the fabulous world of psychology. The purpose of this PowerPoint is to just give you a little bit of an introduction to psychology as a GCSE, talk you through what's involved in the GCSE and also some further opportunities that studying this subject might offer you. So the first question is psychology a science? Psychology is in fact a science. It is the scientific study of the human mind and human behaviour. Another important question to understand before choosing to take psychology as a GCSE subject is whether or not psychology is all about psychopaths and criminals, because sometimes people can believe that that's all that this subject is about. However, this is in fact not true, and psychology is not all about psychopaths and criminals. In fact, we do look at criminal psychology in the GCSE, but that is just one unit. It's one small part of the area of psychology. And what we look at in criminal psychology, I shall explain in the next couple of slides. So, psychology overall can be described as the study of the human mind, its functions and how it affects human behaviour. Psychology is all about looking at why we do the things that we do in life. And for the GCSE, we look at the different theories and different psychological concepts that help explain human behaviour. So, if you have a look at the slide in front of you now, these are the key areas that you will study in your GCSE psychology. In your Year 10, you'll start with developmental psychology, looking at the ways in which children develop. You'll look at famous theories such as Piaget around how and why and at what age children develop concepts such as being able to understand the world from the perspective of others. You'll also look at theories such as Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Once we've looked at that, we then move on to looking at memory, and we focus on why certain people are able to retain pieces of information better than others. We look at the way the memory is constructed and the different models that are proposed, such as the multi-store model of memory, and we look at how this model is broken down, the different steps that are involved, such as long-term and short-term memory, and what happens if people are able to rehearse information significantly and the difference this makes on their working memory. We also in Year 10 look at psychological problems. During this topic we'll focus mainly on depression and addiction and consider the nature versus nurture debate, looking at whether genes or someone's environment and upbringing is more likely to be responsible for the development of psychological conditions such as depression and addiction. We will also look at the area of social influence, looking at individual behaviour, why people are more or less likely to respond to certain authority figures, look at behaviour of people in groups, whether that be their peers, their family, or also crowd behaviour as well. We'll then look in Year 10 more closely at the construction of the brain. We'll look at the role of motor neurons, the roles of the different areas that exist within the human brain, and what happens if injury is sustained by one of those areas. So we'll look at how that will impact on someone's life and their brain function. In Year 11, we move on to looking at the topic of sleeping and dreaming. We look at why people develop conditions such as narcolepsy and insomnia and how these conditions can be overcome. We also look at Freud's dream analysis theory, focusing particularly on his study of a boy called Little Hans. The other unit we focus on in Year 11 is criminal psychology, looking at why some people choose to engage in criminal behaviour, but also focusing on the criminal justice system, whether or not the systems within this country act strongly enough as a deterrent for criminal behaviour, and why some people engage in what's known as recidivism, which is reoffending of criminal behaviour. The other unit that we'll study in Year 11, although this will thread through the units in Year 10, is research methods, and this is why it's really important, if you're considering choosing this subject, that you know that maths, English and science are strong areas for you, because the research methods does contain a scientific and mathematical element to it. So what's involved in each unit? Each unit involves you initially learning key terms so that you get a decent understanding of what each of these terms means. This will then in turn help you understand the concepts and theories that relate to each unit. For example, in the unit entitled Psychological Issues, we look at twin studies, so you'll need to understand the difference between monozygotic and dizygotic twins so that you're able to understand why two different types of twins are studied in order to help us understand whether the development of addiction and depression is down to a person's genetics. We will also look at applying the theories and concepts that you've learnt to scenarios, as well as evaluating each of these theories and concepts by looking at its strengths and weaknesses and whether or not different research might help better explain the scenario. Each unit comes with two key studies which are also really interesting to study. For example, in brain injury and neuropsychology, we look at the case study of a gentleman called Phineas Gage, who experienced an injury to the front of his brain following an accident whilst working on the railway line when he had a metal rod pass through his brain. And we look at how this injury changed his personality. We also look at another example we look at is within the social influence topic, a study conducted on the New York Underground, where psychologists were interested to see if a person needed support on the train and they collapsed as a result of drinking too much, or if they fell over on the train because they were blind. They were looking at exploring whether people were quicker to respond to support the drunk person or quicker to respond to the person who was blind. Research methods, as I've already said, is a maths-based unit, so we'll look at how different research methods are used across the studies that we look at. There will be two exams. Paper 1 is an hour and 45 and paper 2 is an hour and 20. Psychology is a really fascinating GCSE, and it's one of the few GCSE options that gives you the opportunity to understand human behaviour and development. If you were to take psychology at GCSE, it could lead you to a world of possibilities. And if you look at the column on the right hand side, you can see some of the potential career opportunities that might be open to you if you were to pursue psychology once you left school. For example, a clinical psychologist goes on to work with people around their emotions, their mental health and their behaviour, and looking at counselling and therapy approaches. A health psychologist might look at working with patients on addictions and developing healthy lifestyle habits. A consumer psychologist might work within the retail industry, helping shops work out how to set up their stores so that they encourage customers to buy particular products, look at people's purchasing behaviours throughout the years, so what makes people buy something and when. A psychological therapist may choose to work with either adults or children and look at the particular therapies that are on offer to people and help people overcome any negative life events that they've experienced. So there's a whole world of opportunities open to you if you were to choose to pursue psychology as a subject. It is a really fascinating GCSE, and I think it is one that many of you will enjoy. It is an academic GCSE, so although it's something new and exciting, you will need to work hard in this subject, and you will need to have a good level of understanding in maths, English and science. If you've got any questions, folks, about the subject, then please don't hesitate to contact me, and I will answer those for you as best I can, and I will hopefully get the opportunity to see you all in a little bit of a taster session for the subject.